Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. In this evening's conversation, I'll be speaking to Alex Mitchell from Scotland. Welcome, Alex.
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me on to have a chat, Chris. It's really appreciated.
It's a pleasure, yeah. I believe we connected through X, I think through a mutual friend, Adam Rowland.
Yes, a very good friend. Adam is one of the few people in this world that I actually talk to on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Adam's journey is absolutely heartbreaking in so many levels. And the fact that he's still here, he's still got a positive mindset, he's still got a fight in his belly. If that doesn't inspire others, then I don't know what does. You know, given when you know his personal journey.
Good. Yeah. So Alex, feel free to share a bit about your life, what you were doing at the time before your vaccine injury, I believe it is, and yeah.
Yes. Yes. My name's Alex Mitchell. I was a 56-year-old scaffolder at that point, and like everyone else, we went through a year of lockdown. Not just one country, the whole world shut down, and it was everywhere. You know, I've never saw some of the sights that I've saw. You know, American highways empty. You know, St. Peter's Square in Rome empty. Just the things that you never saw. You know, streets in London empty. And it'll be the same in every major city across the world. And we were locked down for a year, and obviously we were terrified because it was 24/7 on, especially here. And I now know that it was everywhere. It was every media platform, every possible media option. It was 24/7. Get your vaccine, protect lives, save your health service, protect your old people, look after your vulnerable. They were showing us people dying in the streets in China, in New York, the bodies getting stored. You know, so there was no doubt there was something horrific happening in 2020. And there was, you know, and then they came out with these vaccines that, you know, the COVID vaccine specifically, that were going to protect granny, save lives, protect your health service. You know, I had no underlying health conditions. As a construction worker, I was supremely fit. I was about 12.5 stone with less than 5% body fat. I lifted 5 ton of steel every day.
Wow. I will calculate the kilogram comparison for those listening.
It's a lot. Yes. It's a lot.
You were strong. You were very strong.
Yeah, and I was very, very fit, and I had no underlying health conditions ever. And during 2020, unfortunately, we lost my mum. It was the last year of her life. And old people around her were passing away from COVID, this virus that was killing everyone, and it was doing horrible damage. And we don't want to be responsible for anyone catching something from you, even though it's not going to harm you to a certain extent. So I went and did what I thought was the right thing on the 20th of March 2021. And I got an AstraZeneca vaccine. And I was told verbally, because that was March 21, it was very early, that I may have a sore sight arm, flu-like symptoms for possibly 48 hours. And that was fine. I'm back at work on the Monday, and I was back to normal. And then on the 1st of April, I lifted a heavy piece of machinery myself, and I thought I'd pulled both calf muscles. That's the only way I can explain it. Being a typical construction worker, scaffolder, I struggled on for a couple of days. And then on Sunday, the 4th of April, I felt exhausted, as if I'd run a marathon, but better. And it had been my daughter's birthday the previous day. I had missed it. So I'd arranged to meet my daughter. So I'm an old-fashioned mod. I'll explain what a mod is in a minute. So I ironed. I was pressing my clothes myself, and I finished and switched the iron off and turned round, and I collapsed. My legs gave way, and I knew that there was something wrong. Something inside me told me, you have to stay calm. You're in trouble. Unfortunately, my wife was downstairs where I am just now in the kitchen with the door closed, and I had to pull myself down the stairs head first backwards. So I've effectively thrown myself down the stairs, and I've made an awful lot of noise. My wife has come out, and I'm still very calm. And I've said to my wife, I need you to stay calm, and I need you to do two things. Phone an ambulance and get me a belt. Because at that point, I felt something in my left calf. I didn't know what it was. Now, the belt, maybe that's too many Westerns, watching too many war movies, get a belt, put a tourniquet on it, you're gonna be all right. Yeah, that's my only excuse. That's only that's the only thing I can think of. Clearly it works for gunshot wounds, but it doesn't work for what I had. Anyway, and I laugh. I can laugh now about certain things. You've got to. So I don't remember the ambulance trip to the hospital. I've got flashes of it, and I'm in the hospital, and there's a lady head to toe in scrubs. All I can see is her eyes, and she says, "We need to go for a CT scan, and we need your permission." So I've kind of signed this form, and the CT scan's still spinning, and this doctor standing beside me. We need to go to theatre. We need to go now. And I said, I take it I'm in trouble. She went, oh yeah. And I said, how bad? She said, the worst kind. All I could say at that point was, all I can ask you to do is do your best. I was given 5 minutes to phone my wife and my two daughters from my first marriage to effectively say, cheerio. Unknown to me, they were in a room 30 feet away, being told there was no hope. They'd never seen anything like this. It was very unlikely that I was going to survive. If I did survive, it would be from the waist up. It was unlikely. But it's not that they were giving up hope, they were just being very honest. I then spent 7.5 hours in surgery, having multiple clots simultaneously removed from both my right leg, my left leg, and my lower abdomen. And I've come round after 7 hours. Sorry, I do have a cat. I come round after 7 hours, 7.5 hours, and the same lady standing at the bottom of my bed. And she said, you shouldn't be here. You really shouldn't be here. We don't know how you're still here, but here we hope you stay. And then started to explain to me some of what they thought was going on. Because at that point, we still didn't know what it was. I was getting tested for everything. At that point, blood samples, it was just constant. And she explained that she was really happy with my right leg and my lower abdomen, but she had a concern for my left leg. Within 15 minutes, that concern became that there will be an amputation. I asked for a week. Wow. And yeah, I asked for a week in the hope that it was going to be a below-the-knee amputation. Because at this point, I'm now trying to plan ahead what this means to my life, what this is doing, what's happened. We still don't know what's caused it, but, so you're kind of think every thought that you can think of and many that you can't go through your head. I'd love to see you get the time to dwell on them. You don't. That it's like a maelstrom of thoughts. And the hope was that in my head, that if this could be a below-the-knee amputation, I could go back And I could go back to doing what I was doing before in some capacity. I thought they gave me a week because I asked for it. They didn't. We now know, and it's been acknowledged, that I wouldn't have survived an amputation at that point, because I wasn't expecting. They couldn't believe that I'd survived what I'd survived. So I spent a week in isolation, because this was during the height of COVID. There was no visitors. So I basically spent a full week in a room in a hospital with no visitors, no access, and did an awful lot of thoughts and, trying to deal with what you're facing. And we still didn't know what was the cause. But during that week, obviously, everything in my life was questioned for the previous 6 weeks. And the only thing different in my life at that point was that I'd went and got the AstraZeneca vaccine. So a week was spent doing all sorts of blood tests and trying to keep me stable and trying to build me up. The operation I was scheduled to be amputated on the Sunday. And there was an anomaly discovered in my blood. And they basically, if they'd used it, I wouldn't be here. And the only reason it came to light was that during that week, my pain levels, the counting of pain levels in 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, we were counting mines up to 20. And the highest I got was 19. And it's the closest I've ever come to insanity. I've never experienced pain like it. I'll never want it again. In that week, I went through 1.5 liters of morphine. It's a huge amount of morphine. So they discovered this anomaly, and they had to basically go and recreate 8 pints of blood with this anomaly in it before the amputation. I came to coming out the theatre with my bed hitting the theatre doors, and that was when I realised that it was an above the knee amputation and not a below the knee. That was my darkest moment. That was. So what do? You've just got to go on with it. Being so fit, I was in a gym within 8 hours of being amputated. And within 8 days, I was home. I was told as I left the hospital on my medical notes that this was thrombotic and thrombocytopenia syndrome. Within 2 weeks, that was reclassified or renamed as VITT, vaccine-induced thrombocytopenia thrombosis. It's a horrible condition. Effectively, what it does is you've got white blood cells, red blood cells, hemoglobin, plasma, oxygen and water. That's what makes up your blood. If you then go to antibody levels, there's an antibody called platelet factor 4 or PF4 antibody, and it's a negative antibody. That's what regulates your bruising and your platelets. So it's a kind of defense mechanism. And it's negative because it depletes before it kills you, if that makes any sense. It's your body's sort of a defense mechanism. And in essence, what happened, the negative PF4 is turned positive. So we never run out of platelets forming, even though they're getting eaten up and activated and used as clots. So effectively, you're a perpetual 24-hour clot machine.
Wow.
Yeah, it's some scary stuff. And I was told at that time, well, I was the first in the world to survive with the level of it at that time that I had. And I was told that I was extremely rare and the only one in the world. And within 2 weeks of leaving hospital, I found out that there was officially 235 at that point, other VITs in the UK. Did that make it? That made me feel worse, because if you think it's only you that's happened to, you think that's the worst terrible luck and tragedy. And to a certain extent, you can process that, but you can't process the fact that, hold on a minute, you're not the only one in the world. You've just found another 200 plus in the UK alone. And I took to social media, basically trying to find other people like me to get help and support, because nobody wants to help and support. Within 3 weeks of leaving the hospital, I was medically certified as VITT by the world's leading haematology task force. So that's irrefutable, undeniable, indisputable medical evidence of what happened to me. I'm also the first living person that the UK government acknowledged via their vaccine damage payment scheme, which is a one-off payment scheme for people that have been proven to be vaccine injured and over 60%. It's a horrific scheme. Only 1.7% of all claimants are awarded. It's not a compensation scheme. It's £120,000. As a scaffolder, it wasn't 3 years' wages for me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not a shortfall, because there's so many people. The latest figures for the Freedom of Information, which is the UK government's official figures, is that over 11,000 people, 11,000 people in the last 3 years have made an application to this award scheme, believing that they've been harmed by one of the COVID vaccines, not just AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna. They're the three that we have used.
Yeah.
But you also have to be 60% disabled. If you're 59% disabled, you don't qualify. So that's 11,000 people that believe. Now, I'll acknowledge not every one of those 11,000 people will be confirmed and proved to be that. There may be some, there will be others that have reasons, but the figures don't lie. Because previous to 2020, that scheme only ever received on average 100 claims a year. So clearly there's a signal here that's going wrong. And as I say, I set out to try and find other people like me. And I found that it wasn't just AstraZeneca. It was Pfizer, it was Moderna. Worldwide, it was Johnson & Johnson. And for 9 months, I was on social media feeling like the only man in the world, because I couldn't connect to anyone, screaming for help and support, and a raging storm, and nobody was listening. And then in December, a tweet that I put out, just the same as, in my opinion, any other tweet that I'd been putting out, trying to raise awareness, trying to get help and support, seemed to catch the public's eye, the attention. And that led to where we are now. 2 years effectively of full campaigning, raising awareness, calling out MPs, calling out governments, calling out pharmaceutical, calling out doctors. You know, to tell, nobody's said that that vaccines have never saved lives. That these ones are not traditional vaccines in the sense of the word, and never have been. And that is clearly an issue on its own right. What I know now, what I knew then, and what I know they knew then, and what they told us then, has got me so angry, because they've silenced me, they've suppressed me, they've labelled me, they've abused me, and denied that I existed. they labelled people like me anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theorists. The insanity in that statement alone, to a man who's medically certified, can't be denied, refuted and disputed. It's illogical. It makes you look so ridiculous. I've never been anti-vaxxers. I took the bloody thing. Conspiracy theorist?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't a conspiracy theorist. I became a conspiracy. You know, I didn't know it was a conspiracy to the government said I didn't exist. So for 3 years, the frustration and the fight, and along the way, I became my brother Adam, who we spoke about. That's how we've had this conversation. And you probably heard Adam mention another chap called John Watt. John's another Scottish lad that I didn't know prior to this, who is also, but he's a different side of the story because I've had all the evidence and the proof and health support in many ways, whereas John has had the opposite. He's had the experience that I come across with hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, doctors telling them that it's in their head, that it can't possibly, you know, they call it everything but the one thing it possibly could be.
Yeah.
You know, and where I am now is that we now know that for me, I set out 3 years ago, and I've only ever wanted three things: proper help and support for the vaccine injured and the bereaved. Stop these things, because clearly, globally, there is some massive problem. And the third one is more important to me now than anything else, because the first two involve people being adults. And as an adult, I'll never tell you what to do. All I say to you is go and do your research. It doesn't matter what you decide to do. I'll stand beside you to the death, because that's democracy. You're right. What I'm here to do is say to you, if it does go wrong, this is where you are. You get no help, you get no support. You go from being a decent, earning, living human being to basic state benefits that, you know, you can't even get your house adapted. In the UK, it's disgusting. And I'm not alone in that. You know, so sorry, I've got brain fog, so sometimes I forget where I was. If you tell me what I was talking about, I can come back to it.
That's all good. I relate. Alex, I was going to ask you, has any doctor or specialist told you the chances of what happened to you, like a ratio? Is it 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000? What is that ratio, if you do know that?
Well, this is the thing, because we've got to define what rare is, and we've got to define what very rare is. Very, very rare doesn't exist. There's no scientific numbers, but there is for rare and very rare. Rare is 1 in 100,000. Very rare is 1 in 100,000 to 1 million sort of thing. Now, the simple fact of the matter is that there is now 445 cases of VITT certified in the UK. As a percentage, that's high enough. But the simple fact that there's 81 fatalities in that figure, and every other medical product in history has been pulled for less.
Yeah.
With regards to what we now know and what we knew then, you know, they told us this thing killed everyone. We now know for a fact that unless you were elderly, infirm, or had health comorbidities or underlying health conditions, you had a reason. All you had this was going to do was be a really, really heavy cough. You know, so therefore, why did we try and populate the world when we only needed to protect. We're old as always, and we're vulnerable, and we're infirm. For the first time in history, every other vaccine that you have taken in your life was given to you to protect you. These ones, they're telling you are to protect anyone else. And we now know that the technologies seriously flawed, both the RNA and the mRNA. The RNA, which is the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson, and the mRNA is your Moderna and your Pfizer. We don't even need to talk about Pfizer. Their paper dump that they tried to hide for 75 years kind of explained everything. We don't need. We're still trying to get AstraZeneca to release that data. That's another story. We knew, AstraZeneca knew 20 years ago that the driver that they were using to drive this mechanism caused fatal clotting issues then. So if they knew 20 years ago and they didn't do any proper changes to it and tests to it, and there's no evidence of that, how can you possibly know that that's safe and effective when you already know? You know, this whole sort of a thing about that people are anti-vaccine with conspiracy theories. We're not. We're ordinary human beings who've been put in the most horrible place on this planet. I've never in my life, in my 60 years, because I'm 60 this year, can I recollect a situation where people have been put in a place I call no man's land. We get it from pro-vaccine people because we're talking negatively about a vaccine. We get it from the real anti-vax people because we took a vaccine. The government labelled us as liars, conspiracy theories and anti-vaxxers, and encouraged the public and its millions to attack us and abuse us personally. The level of abuse that I've taken personally over the last 3 years, some people should really go and sit in a dark room and think about what they've done. I'm stronger than that. You won't put me down. I'm a scaffolder. You cannot abuse me. I'll come back to you because I can back up what I say. And I have got no fear of anyone in this world. I didn't have much fear as a scaffolder and a construction worker. But when you're told you're not going to open your eyes again, and you do, and you realise there is no fear, it kind of does something to you. It changes you in that way. And that can be dangerous because I don't know how to stop. But this is not just because this has happened to me. This goes back to me referencing being a mod. I said I would explain if you wanted to.
Please.
Being a mod is you know what a punk is? A punk, a goth, an emo.
Yes, it's
right.
a punk, yeah.
Right. A mod is short for modernistic. And what it is that we believe that we're different. And we celebrate that. But we've got common themes. Like we love a certain type of music, dress a certain way, I drive a certain vehicle, and I dance a certain way. I wear three-piece suits, 60s ties, pocket chains, very much what you see as Peaky Blinders now.
I've heard of the show, yeah.
Well, I've dressed like that since I was 17.
Wow.
And I've driven, you know what a Lambretta is, or a Vespa scooter?
Yes, I do. I know Vespa, I don't know the Lambretta, yeah.
Right. Well, I've got a 1970s Vespa. It's old Vespas we drive. So we drive the old scooters, we wear the suits, there's certain music that we listen to, I call it Northern Soul. At the age of 17, many years ago, I thought, if you're dressing to this standard, should not everything in your life try to be to that standard? And that's when I set my morals, my standards, my ethics and principles of the type of man I wanted to be. And at the age of 56, I'd got there. I'd done everything I wanted to do and more. I'd been in a band, and it was a successful band, and within the mod scene. We did highlighted some big shows. And, playing a gig to 500 people that most of them, that are in a big sort of a scene, there's no energy that can explain it. It's a buzz beyond belief. It's also the best laxative known to man. So
Alex, yeah, sorry. I wanted to take you back to the health stuff in the hospital. So you've now been told that you need to have an amputation. What is the reason for that? Is it clots that they're not able to take out? I mean, why not just give you blood thinners and all of that? Well, why was it necessary to take this drastic action? Yeah.
The problem was that these clots that they were looking at, they'd never seen clots like this before. That's all they would ever say to me. I now know that the clots, they can tell the difference between a normal, abnormal clot, a virus clot, and a vaccine clot, because they all look different.
Yeah. Was that the anomaly that the nurse noticed, these specific clots in your blood?
No, because we now know that, they didn't know this then, but they now know that this is not a genetic thing. It's not down to there's something, a flaw within me or anyone else. This could have happened to anyone that got that particular one. So the reason for the amputation was because the damage that the clots had done to the capillaries and all the veins and all the little arterial lines, and I know what. And all I can say is that I watched what happened for a week. So yeah, as the week drew closer to the end, the more an amputation was, and there's no argument about it, this had to happen. So the thinners and things like that, I'm on a range of thinners for life, because I'm 3 years in. My PF4 antibody is still well over 100.4% positive when it should be 96% negative. So it's unlikely that's going to change. I can live with that to a certain extent. As to the other damage it's done, well, we're waiting on a brain scan because we know there is damage there. And it's cognitive memory, things that seem to be the problem. History, I've got clear memories and I can articulate reasonably well. But the problem I've got is my reading in. I used to be able to read reports, business reports in 10, 15 minutes and analyse them and give you an analysis of it. Now it takes me that long just to get a sentence or a paragraph into my head. So it's the short, the retain seems to be going. Again, I'm not alone. It's a very common theme among not just my condition, but many other people that suffer from other issues. I'm waiting on a scan on my right calf because we know that there's so much damage done down there. And obviously those veins and capillaries have been damaged because what happens is as clots form, microclots form, your body's natural system is to fight it, and they explode. And when they give you the thinners and things like that, they explode even faster. And what the belief is that these microclots, as they're exploding, are causing damage in all the linings and all these little arterials, but they're getting flushed out, but the damage still remains. So you're left with poor circulation because I have no circulation, very little pulse. They do a pulse test at my hip. It's very faint. At my knee, it's even fainter. And on my ankle, they can't find it. My leg's got cold 24/7. It's always cold. Because obviously the blood doesn't get to it too well. So, you know, the whole clots thing, that's kind of what really sparked them to know that there was a massive problem. And in fact, you know, had that vascular surgeon that did the 7.5 hours not say, we've never seen anything like this, had the intelligence, I'll say, the medical intelligence to say, this is way beyond something I know. And she contacted hematology. Thankfully, the hematology team in the hospital where I was at is part of the leading, it's called the Hematology Task Force, which was set up worldwide. It's all the hematologists come together. She went to them, and I know that there was calls going from Glasgow to all over the world to speak to other hematologists up to 2, 3, whatever time in the morning it was. People were getting called out of bed because they knew that this was different. And thankfully, in my case, they gave me steroids. That was one of the first things that they gave me. And that stopped the clots forming. It kind of blocked the PF4 antibody, and that allowed them to clear my system, get the thinners into me, and any other plasma and hemoglobin and things like that they put in you. And that's what got me stable. And obviously, yeah, that week.
The timeline was this. Sorry, your cough and when you collapsed and you had to crawl down the stairs. What was the timeline between your vaccine 1 or 2 and this point? Do you have a few vaccines? Was it just one? Yeah.
One vaccine, the very first, one and only, and I got that on the 20th of March. I experienced the calf issues on the 1st of April, and I collapsed on the 4th of April. I was amputated on the 11th of April, and I was home on the 19th of April. And all within that time, as I left the hospital, I was confirmed that this was medically, and they had one test to finalise, but every other test pointed to that, so they were happy to say on the day that this was vaccine related in their belief. And the results came back from what's called the ELISA, or the PF4 antibody test. And that's the test that confirmed that this was, in fact, vaccine related. I was treated very well with the hospital staff. Don't get me wrong. I think I was the one patient everybody in the hospital, every medical professional in the hospital knew was in there, if that makes any sense. Because I saw an awful lot of faces passing by my door in that week. And in the 8 days after the amputation, the number of medical professionals that I sat and spoke to, 2 or 3 at a time, all taking notes, I think I must have spoke to about 32 people. And we're talking about 45 minutes to an hour at a time, because I wanted them to get as much information as possible to try and find out, what is this? You know, and unfortunately, when you come out of hospital, sorry?
I was just going to ask, was there any tests? I mentioned some symptoms of your peri and myocarditis, the heart stuff, the inflammation. Was there anything like that they picked up that you've experienced?
No, for me, it was all my lower body. I didn't experience any issues upper body my heart and things like that. Everything else seemed fine. The only thing that I've thought over the years is that my level of fitness is what saved me more than anything. Because my body was in such good condition that it fought more, more than a body that's not conditioned. if that makes any sense. Possibly that, in that I'm just exactly what I am. I know exactly what I am. I know exactly who I am. My mother called me the most thrawn, stubborn, awkward bastard she'd ever clapped eyes on. It's true. It's true.
I love this. I love the Scottish culture and everything. It's great. You could be a comedian in my eyes. I think I would listen to you.
No, thank you.
Yep.
And that wasn't always said with love. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't always said with love. And she worked in bars for 60 years. So she had a really good knowledge and understanding what a good bastard is. So I kind of accepted that, yeah, she must be right. And she is right, because I've realised that's exactly what I am. And that's exactly who I am. And I've been like this since I was 4 or 5 years old. I don't know any other way. Does that make me any different, any special than anybody else? No. I think I'll give you my idea of why I think what it is. I've always thought that, I now know that life is full of two types of people, fighters and flighters. And you're somewhere in between. Well, I've realised that I'm way up there in the fighting. And I've always have been. Because when I was a boy, I did nothing but fight. I fought, so it wasn't just physically. I fought all my life in every way. And I know that that's the way I am. And I've accepted that a long time ago. Do I like everything about me? No, I don't. But I've tried to change the bits that I don't and enhance the bits that I do. Have I done right? Well, that's not for me to judge. I'm happy being me, because what I've done is I only do what makes me happy. Because then I know I'll be happy. Because I found out if I lower my standards or my morals or my ethics or my principles, I become unhappy. So if I stick to them, I know I'm happy. And the problem with that is that makes me stubborn. It makes me awkward. And it makes me thrawn, which is twisted. It's an old Scottish word. And yeah, does that make me a bastard? Yeah, because I don't know, and I know I won't stop. I know that that's the way I am, and that's how I am, and I'm at peace with that. I try to be nice with it about it. Yeah, I do. You try and talk nice to people, but I'm not here to be abused and taken for a fool by anybody. I never have been, whether that be spiritually, mentally, medically, physically, or orally, And working in construction for years, you learn to bite back.
Tough, thick skin, I guess you'd call it.
Very thick skin. Yeah, because my mates have used me every day of my life to a far worse level than anybody in this world could. Because they meant it half the time. The world, they don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. If you've got a problem with me, come and talk to me. Stand in front of me. One or two things is going to happen. I'm either going to shake your hands and agree with you and apologise, and I'm going to break your jaw. It's up to you to find out what it is. Because if you're that brave to do that, I've automatically got respect for you. Because you're a man of your convictions. I couldn't care less what people are, who they are, what sex they are, what religion. I couldn't. I care what's inside you. I really do. Has this become a spiritual thing in many ways? Of course it has. Of course it has, because you don't get to go to the dark places that we've been. And I'm going to tell you, these are really dark places. Yeah. And they're very lonely places. Yeah. But we've got to visit them. Unfortunately.
Going through this, has going through this given you, I guess, a desire to seek faith or a belief?
I had this conversation 2 days ago in the sauna with a lady. She has a faith and is very vocal about her faith. And I said to her, I believe in one thing, me. Because every time I've asked for any of you gods to do anything, not for me, but for the world and things, I see the opposite. So I struggle to believe that there is something else there. I can't believe that we're just here, we exist and we go and nothing happens. Because otherwise, what's the point? So I think we'll all know the answer to that if we ever find somewhere else when we go. But if you've got a faith and you get solace out of that, then that's a real faith for you, and I'm happy for you that you've got that faith. My faith is in me, because the only person that's got me to hear is me, and I believe in me. Is that arrogant? I don't think so. It's just I know what I'm capable of, because I know that I won't stop. I say it with a joke. I say, you've done two things wrong here in my eyes. Pissed off a Scotsman. You've pissed off a Scottish scaffolder. You don't know what you've woke up. And in many ways, it is because I had a perfectly happy life. I had reached all my goals. I was content with my life, and I had a very busy, good life. And you took that away from me. No, you don't get to do that and walk away. If you looked after me, you helped me, support me, I'd still be angry. I'd still be upset. But I'd maybe be able to live in a bit of peace. You know, I've had to speak to psychologists. I've had to speak to psychiatrists. Both of who said they couldn't help me in the nicest possible way. Because as they said, you're not dealing with the trauma of what happened to you. You're trying to cope with the trauma of how you're being treated for 3 years. And that is that.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry, I spoke about this, how it's I guess in my personal situation, it's slightly different. I don't have a direct vaccine injury that I know of. The doctors does suspect something because my spike antibody levels are still incredibly high for 2 years post acute infection and 2.5 years post 2 Pfizer's vaccines. But Adam and I just spoke quite a bit on the thought of how it's so difficult because you feel like you've been left behind. Like I see people out exercising, going to work, carrying on with their life, and it's like I'm suffering here. And do you guys like forget that we lived through a pandemic? Like we were all locked up. Like there was massive anxiety, trauma, and now it's like, oh, forget about that. We're gonna move forward with our lives. And sorry you're injured, but that's how it feels sometimes.
It's a sore one, and it's life moves on. So that's a kind of hard one for you to acknowledge, and it moves on without you. We all do it. We all think, I've got friends, there's certain people that'll never. Yeah, you find out who you are, who's there for you. You really do. And that comes down to family, and sometimes in many ways. And, people have lost everything. And that's what gets me so fired up in some ways. I'm an old man. This is not going to get fixed for me. This is never going to get better for me. So this is not about changing it for me, but you're a young man. Adam's a young man. And I don't care why you're in the position you're in, what's put you there. I care the fact that you're in that position and nobody's giving you the help and support that you need. That, on a human level, is the biggest injustice I can think of. And when we've got politicians standing behind words in Parliament, using statistics flavoured by whoever sponsored them, when you trace the money back, the connections, all this, when you see that and you think, what people give up quickly. You've lost 16 people. 16 people I know through the last 3 years. who, for one reason or another, just was a soul that had enough. And that should never be allowed, just because someone's in a place that nobody else is. You know, let's be honest, many young people, whether it was they caught COVID and didn't realise that they had an underlying health condition and it's destroyed their health, or whether it's any of these COVID vaccines afterwards that's maybe angered the fact that you had COVID, we don't know because they're not doing the research. And we'll never know because there's no appetite to do the research. You know, given that...
When you said you've lost 16 people that you know, are those people who have passed away, or you're referring to taking their lives?
Taking their lives. And that includes people that lost their lives during lockdown, because what the locking people down that are already in a dark place just shut every door that they had. I don't judge people. I never do. I never will, because we don't know what was on in somebody's head. And given the fact that I've had the darkest thoughts that you could possibly imagine, I get it. Because I can give you 14 million different reasons every day not to be here. But I only need one to stay. And I've got three. Not three. You know. Sorry, where were you then?
To go back to the... Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to go back to the what do you call it? Like your payouts for compensation of your injury. Has AstraZeneca ever acknowledged you or connected with you in that way? Have you tried to contact them? And also, you said you were one of the successful payouts. I wanted to share also on my side. What's tough for me is because I'm able to kind of work my job 50% or 60 or 70%, whatever that is, because I'm above, like I'm not completely disabled. The disability income benefit that I applied for through my company denied the claim, because I can work a little bit or mostly. I can do most of my job. And that was hard for me because I'm on unpaid leave now. I've the shortfall in my salary, the increase in my expenditure on all my blood tests, blood work, the triple therapy I'm currently on to treat microclots in my blood. So I've had long COVID now for 2 years, and I just wanted you to, I guess, talk a bit about that process. And
they have this thing in the UK called the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme. It was an act that was put into place in 1979. That was supposedly as a fallback, fall to help support mechanism for those that were harmed by vaccines previously. Because there is people that have had to reactions to other medical products. And the way that that's put across is that should anything happen to you, your government's going to look after you because that's there to help you. And it's only when you go and you start to actually look at it in any detail and you start to go, hold on a minute, this is not quite the box of candy that was presented to me. As I say, it was set up in 1979. And at that point, you had to prove that it was most likely to have been caused by a vaccine or a medical product. And at that point, you had to be 80% disabled. I wouldn't have qualified at that point when they set it up. This is, so... And it was set up, as I say, in 1979. And over the years, there's been many, many attempts to try and get it reformed, to brought into line, and there's never been an appetite to do so. When you start to go through the process, that story in itself is about an hour long, and it's absolutely the most horrific treatment of a human being that anybody can go through. But that's another story. So this was set up, and it's supposed to be a shortfall. You apply for it, they send you letters telling you they've received your claim, and it may take some time. And you never hear from them. You've got to chase them up constantly. So anyway, this has tried to be reformed on several occasions. And the reason it's unfit for purpose is because the 60% disabled is guided by what's called a green book. It's an industrial scale book that the government uses on injuries, that's based on injuries from soldiers returning from the Second World War. It doesn't have autoimmune conditions, blood diseases, so therefore it doesn't have myocarditis. But so all these things are automatically ruled out that you don't qualify. And this is where the whole system is wrong. It's failing people because only, and historically since 1979 to date, it's only ever paid out 1.7% of claims historically. And that trend hasn't changed in the last 3 years, I can assure you. Because over 11,000 people to date have claimed this, and only 163 awards have been made. And they're dragging their heels over them. Because if there's more awards, there's more acknowledgement, there's harms, it's a bigger problem. And it's similar to a scandal that's going on in the UK just now regarding the post office. And the software system said that there was money missing from the post offices, and they had to pay it back. And it turns out these people have been complaining for years. They knew for years there was a software issue. Some of these people went to prison because of it. And you look at scandal, and it's just scandal after scandal, and you look, the common theme is everything's set up to protect the government, the industry behind it, whether it be pharmaceutical, whether it be the regulations, it's to suit somebody, it's not to suit the public. They say it's, and it's, the amount is, it's not even fit for purpose. Had I been in a car accident or an accident at work through neglect of someone else, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. I'd be a pretty wealthy man, because it's all set up and it's all loss of earnings. It's estimated it's going to cost me £1 million for prosthetics for the rest of my life. We also know that at some point I'm going to need 24 care. That's what's been planned ahead.
Are you saying you haven't been awarded a claim?
I was the first living person to be awarded the £120,000 for one of these vaccines, these COVID vaccines in the UK.
But you say that covers you for what, 2-3 years, and then the rest of your life you kind of have to figure it out, and that's sure.
And
wow.
As I say, and when this happened, obviously you go into statutory sick pay, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I was down to £100 a week from earning a lot more than that, believe me. And eventually, when I came out of the hospital and things, my wife had to go part-time. My wife's now not working either, so, we're now at the stage where we now went from 2 reasonably good standards of living income together to less than 1 that we had previously. This £120,000 sounds a lot of money. It's not. It took me 10 months to get basic state benefits. I had a mortgage, I had bills, I had credit cards, I had loans like every other person on this fucking planet. I was 2 days away from losing my house. So that money only saved my house. It's not, do I need money? Yes, we all need money to live. I need money to get my house adapted, because they're not doing it. They want to destroy my house by doing something absolutely insane, and I'm refusing to do it. So they're not, you're not in a process. Trying to get basic help and support. And see, the minute you mention that you're vaccine injured, you're up against a brick wall. And that's despite being I'm the one person at the moment in many ways. There's a few of us, but I can't be denied. I can't be disputed and I can't be refuted. And if I'm struggling to get help and support, I understand some of the pain and frustration people like yourself, Chris, John, Adam, and the thousands and thousands and thousands of others out there that are trying to just get the recognition. You know,
how many people are on? Sorry, Adam spoke of these vaccine injured support groups on various social media platforms. How many people are on those groups currently that you know of?
Well, you've got 3 in the UK that I've got kind of numbers for. The global ones, God, that becomes a ridiculous figure. But you've got the Scottish VIG, which was set up by myself, John Watt, and a lady called Ruth O'Rafferty. That's now got over 600 members in a year and a half. That's 600 people in Scotland. You have another one called...
Wow.
Yeah, you have another group called UK CV Family. That UK COVID vaccine family. I think they're at about the 2,700 mark. And then the third one is VIB UK, which is Vaccine Injured and Bereaved. That's mostly the families of the groups for the class action for suing AstraZeneca, which I'm part of. I'm one of the litigants in the case. They've been instrumental in the trying to reform the vaccine damage payment scheme. And we have MPs who now, you know, we have a couple that are saying, yeah, this is disgusting. Human beings shouldn't be treated like this. Let's make this fair. You know, see if they looked after people like you and me, irrespective of whether it was the vaccine or the virus. I couldn't care less, as I say. The fact that you're injured and you're not getting the proper help and support is enough for me. If they helped us, tried to, you know, said, even, yes, we got this wrong. An apology might have done some good, but even showing some compassion might have helped. But we're 3 years down the road and you're still standing doing the same thing as you did 3 years ago. I don't want your apology because it's not meant and it's not heartfelt. Because you had an opportunity for 3 years known, and yet you still stuck to this narrative of safe and effective, save millions of lives. I love that statement, 20 million lives saved, millions of lives have been saved. I have asked the top people in the world, publicly, for 3 years, government officials, to show me the evidence of the life saved by these vaccines. And not one single person has showed me one shred of evidence of that. However, I can show you hundreds of confirmed vaccine injuries, vaccine deaths, irrefutable, indisputable, undeniable. I've got all the evidence and you're calling me a conspiracy theorist. You know,
that's what is also such a... I laughed at your statement earlier, basically, just that, you know, you took the vaccine. Like, it's not like you were anti-vax before this. I'm in a similar position to you. Like, I believe in healthcare. I believe that doctors exist to help people, and, you know, pharmaceuticals can create products that help people. And usually if a vaccine helps you, I'd say, yeah, then that's good. But if a vaccine is causing harm, then I'd say, okay, no, like, that's probably unwise to get it. But in my case, I was in a similar boat to you. I just thought it was the right thing to do. I had a prior condition of asthma, so I thought, okay, it's probably wise to get the vaccine just to protect my lungs. I was very worried about, you know, ending up in ICU. But I was young. I was young. I was 30, I guess 30 at the time. Yeah, 30 years old, cycling every weekend, pretty fit, playing ultimate frisbee with mates during the week. Yeah, and now I'm not exercising at all. So I do relate to a lot of that sense of you kind of you do it in good faith, like Adam said to me, you know. And then sometimes it's Yeah.
You know, the way that people are treated is horrific. The way we're labelled, you know, the anti-vax. You've heard of the Rolling Stone magazine, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Very famous magazine.
Everybody that's ever played a musical instrument or sang a song or cover of the Rolling Stone, I achieved that. I achieved the cover of the Rolling Stone. Unfortunately, it was a picture of me in my wheelchair in London outside the BBC telling the truth about what happened to me. And the Rolling Stone magazine saw fit to publish that to 6 million people, labelling me an anti-vaxxer and a conspiracy theorist. Yeah.
So I thought you were going to say you were in a band, and the band that you were in did well and got on the cover.
Yeah.
That's what you meant. Wow.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's ridiculous. You know, John said it to me the other day. He said it a couple of times. Do you realise how crazy it is to be famous for all the wrong reasons? You know, yeah, you want to be on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. You would love to be. Not quite the way that I ended up there. That's a magazine that it's on my list. I have a list. There is, obviously, at the moment, my focus is on AstraZeneca and the litigation that we're going through just now. After I win, and we will beat AstraZeneca. There's politicians I'm going for, and I'll get them. And see when I'm finished, then there's mainstream media, politics, so-called celebrity doctors out there, TV doctors. I'm coming for you at the end up. And then I've got a couple of personal ones that I'm going to get. You're going to get to do what you think you can do to me and walk away. You want me to stop? You come and apologise. Again, you'll find out whether I'm going to accept the apology. I'll either go, okay, fair dues, or I'll break your jaw. But you'll have my respect if you stand at my door.
Yeah. Alex, something I mentioned to Adam was something I'm wanting to discuss more with, I guess, doctors and people in the medical system who've studied it, but is the idea of medical ethics. And like if a pharmaceutical said to me, Chris, you're going to take this vaccine, but 1 in 100,000 people is going to die, you know, is that considered okay? I don't think I imagine any deaths is considered okay, you know, in terms of we taking this risk, you know. So if someone said to you, Alex, you're the 1 in 100,000 person who's going to have severe clots and going to need an amputation, you know, is that okay in medical ethics terms? I don't think I'd say yes, you know.
Well,
that's just something I've been pondering.
Yeah, proper informed consent, if you want to call it that, should have been, this does pose a risk of causing clots. This is not a traditional vaccine. This is, you know, a trial. Had all that been said prior to it, would I be anywhere near it? No, because I had no underlying health conditions. I had no need for it. But we were all asked to do the right thing, protect Granny, protect with health services, look after our old people, stay in. You know, don't go, don't stand within 6 feet of each other. You know, the levels that we saw happening, we now look back. I now look back at some of what we saw in 2020, and I think to myself, what were we thinking? Think that this was real? Because it's now that illogical and nonsensical. And a lot of the blame of this lies with the mainstream media. They have a huge role in this. They didn't go with proper journalism, and they still won't go with proper journalism. in my opinion, mainstream media is finished. For real journalists, it's finished. Because you're not printing the truth. You're not doing an investigative story. You're reading a script that somebody has decided that you're going to do. That's not journalism. And why is the medical profession not coming out more about this? I've got many reasons, and not all of them nefarious. And some people genuinely believe that no government and pharmaceutical company would do something like this. I was one of them. I think we all grow up thinking that, yeah, some of these big companies are corrupt. Some politicians are corrupt. Some governments are corrupt, but not mine, not to that level. Other places that nobody wants to go near, yeah, they're governments, but not ours. They wouldn't do that to their people. And yet here we are. So, yeah, people thought they were doing the right thing because they didn't believe that this could be happening. And doctors are the same. Some have got mortgages, kids, in debt, and it's their job and their career. And they don't want to stand up and say, but they're clearly being silenced, because any doctor that does stand up, no matter how experienced, esteemed they are. It's Peter McCullough, one of the most peer-reviewed man, done more studies in history than most generation. They destroyed the man's career because he said, there's something not right here. So there was a fear. People were losing their licenses if they spoke out. And there's also another thing. Many of these doctors were paid some sort of enhancement for these vaccines. Many hospitals received money from pharmaceutical companies and government through these enhancements. Any doctor, every single vaccine that was given out in the UK had a prescription. There was a price paid for every prescription. So every COVID vaccine in the UK had a prescription, and there was a price paid for that. The doctor got £11.80 if he was in his surgery. If he was in a vaccine centre, he got £12.80 to £15. There's doctors that earned £80,000 in 1 week by standing in a vaccine clinic. So therefore, they're not going to be in any hurry to say there's a problem with these things. So it's a combination of reasons why, but most of it is fear of losing their jobs and their careers, because they're ordinary people, just like you and me, just that their job is in the medical field. And I understand that. Do I like it and agree with it? No, I don't. Because I think as a professional, your job first and foremost is to be professional. No matter what the cost is.
I'd like to think, yeah, as a doctor,
you
do it because you want to help people.
So I see a problem here. I should talk about it. And if someone back says to me, don't do this, don't do this, all the more reason to say, no, we have to do this. Unless you can give me a damn good reason as to why I don't.
Alex, sorry, talk to me about Peter McCullough. I've actually come across his protocol for dealing with long vax or long COVID, the bromelain, the naokinase, and the curcumin, I think it is. Is that something you've looked into doing to help treat clots in your body?
The honest answer is that because my blood was so unstable, it's only really in the last year that I've had a bit of freedom, shall we say. I couldn't put anything invasive into my body or near my body without it being cleared by haematology. I was sitting in the house and I got a phone call out the blue from the haematology team asking me if I liked bananas and could I eat a couple of bananas because my potassium levels had dropped and they were worried. That's how closely my blood was monitored. It took me 2 years to get the authorization to go and see a dentist. and it took me another year to get the okay to be anaesthetised by the dentist.
Your teeth look great, by the way. Yeah.
Oh no, you don't want it. They're terrible, miss. Really are. I don't smile very often because it's like a row of condemned houses in there.
From the front, they look fine. So
that's why the beard and the moustache are there to take away from the teeth. You know, so it's been, sorry, where we were saying that the brain fog again's kicked in.
Talk about Peter McCullough.
Oh yeah,
and your blood, why you wouldn't add things or change.
So the only things I've used that I've found had a massive positive effect, other than supplements, you know, your normal supplements that we should all be taking for our guts and things like that, where I'm not going to go through them all because I get tired, I run out of them, but we know what they're doing. Then, other than that, I used acupuncture and a thing called red light therapy. And basically it's just like a small LED laser that puts a pulse into the muscle. It's used by sports professionals and sports therapists. And that's why I used it. And I'd get fantastic comfort because I was in a lot of pain. When I first came out of the hospital and when they amputated, for the first 3 months things were going well, and then had some really bad setbacks, which ultimately led to 2 years of not being able to use a prosthetic. The only answer at that, we always knew that the only answer was an internal operation, effective another amputation. But at that time, they wouldn't do it because I couldn't stay stable long enough. And then on April of last year, my vascular surgeon said, yeah, I'm happy, I'll do the operation. However, there is no risk, there is no guarantee of success, and this is very high risk. And I got another 2 inches of bone removed in May. Yeah, it was. The problem wasn't
the pain.
Yeah, I had 24-hour pain for 2.5 years. It was horrific. Effectively, the muscle come off the bone, and my bone get pushed to the outside of my stump, and it was hitting the internal scar tissue. So it's like stepping on glass or getting glass shards shoved into you. I'm glad that pain's gone, because that was there 24/7 for 2 years. It's not a good place to be mentally. But I'm not in that kind of pain anymore. Thankfully, I'm now coming to the end of my second rehabilitation, effectively, because it takes a while to recover, because you've got to start from the very beginning again, where you're learning to walk again. I think I'm on my 9th time of learning to walk again. You'd think I'd learn by now.
Yeah, sure. Alex, so thank you so much for the chat this evening. It's incredible to hear your story. In conclusion, I just wanted to ask, have you had COVID since actually having this vaccine and this whole journey?
Yeah, I believe it or not, I was fine until I went to Cyprus in June 22. Got permission to fly, got the clearance to actually go on holiday. And it was a family wedding. It was an incredible week that we spent. But on the flight home, all we could hear was people coughing all over the plane. And my wife says to me, you know what's coming here, don't you? Was she worried for me? Of course she was, because we weren't sure how this was going to react and things like that. we weren't 5 hours home from Cyprus, and she was out. We knew she was full COVID at that point. And then within 8 hours, yeah, I got it too. Was it bad? Yeah, it was bad. I'm not going to lie. But it was weird bad. It was a really horrible cold. You know, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I understand why people are saying I'm dying, because you feel as if you're dying. But for me, the strangest thing was my eyeballs. See, my pupils, they were sore. I had sore eyeballs. And that was a freaky thing. It took about 4 or 5 days for that to ease down, but the pain was horrific. So that was weird. But other than that, really feeling like crap for 2 weeks in my case, it wasn't any worse. So did the thing that was meant to protect me, that nearly killed me and took my leg, stopped me from getting the thing. No, it didn't. So, we now know this thing doesn't.
Wow.
You'd have been better throwing a bottle of water over us all, because that's got more protection than what these things have got, because they don't stop you getting it. They don't stop you giving it.
Spray some sanitizer in your mouth and general facial area.
That would have worked better. I might still have 2 legs.
There's the whole debate now about were the masks actually doing anything useful, or was it more a placebo of like, oh, I feel more covered and you're covered, so we're okay.
I'm going to guess, like me, certainly over the last 3 years, there's been many rabbit holes, and I've stayed away from all of them as much as I possibly could, because I only ever focused on raising awareness, getting help and support, stop these things. But the problem is, I do this mental thing. I look at something, I go, oh, that's rubbish. I put that up there. And eventually you get to that up there pile, and when you start going through it, you go, well, that's interesting. And a lot of the stuff that I was researching to find out who was behind this, what companies organised, where they were connected, you start going down different rabbit holes. And what I found is that, see, all these rabbit holes, they all seem to lead to the same big carrot. And I'm starting to understand why people look at it from that angle, because I start to say, well, I'm seeing more evidence to justify your argument that I can accept than I'm seeing to say, no, you're insane, that's mental, that's a conspiracy theorist. But I stick to what I know. I know that these things are not safe and effective, and therefore they're hurting people and they're killing people. We should help these people. We should stop them. We know this virus hurt people, and it was with elderly or people with underlying health conditions. People say to me, why is it that the virus seems to, and the vaccine, they all seem to have these kind of same things? I said, because the vaccine was made to mimic the virus. So therefore the damage will be similar. With regards to the clearing out the system, you mentioned taking your MCAS and you're clearing your supplements and these kind of things. And where I am, and Peter McCulloch and a lot of doctors out there are doing a lot of great work. One of them's a lady called Dr. Tina Pearce, who's doing an awful lot of work on it. It's the spike protein with regards to the Pfizer. And the problem is, you're still producing spike protein. And it's like, if you've got a burst water pipe and it's flooded the kitchen, you don't start to throw the water, try to get the water out without fixing the pipe and stopping the leak. So until they stop the spike protein at source, all everybody's ever doing at the moment is trying to keep the system at bay, when it should be all these protocols that should work. They should clear out your system, but your system's not getting a chance to revive itself, because if it's constant, it's like the PF4 antibody, perpetual clotting. If you're producing T spike protein and T cells at source, once you block that, you're never going to truly clear the system. And so I would say to people, just be very careful what people are trying to say is getting you better. If they're telling you that this is going to clear you 100, make you better, and it doesn't prove that it blocks the spike protein, then that's people making money off the sick, and that's wrong. People like us are now in a desperate place because normal medicine isn't helping us. And in many ways, they don't understand the problem and can't help us. And people are finding that most of the time that natural homeopathic is the stuff that seems to be getting the best results. People cleaning up their system, went to their food, went to their diet, went to the supplements, getting the gut right, taking the right supplements. All that is not a bad thing. But people selling you and telling you it's going to make you better and it's going to fix everything, it's not going to do that. And until we get the spike protein stopped, and I'm very aware that there's many people out there now trying to make money, and it's disgusting. But that's society that we live in. We need to call that out. Yeah, celebrate the doctors that are doing the right work and the right reasons and telling you the truth. Yeah, this will help your system, but it's not going to fix it till we get this sorted. Young people and people that have got in their position, they're desperate to get their life back in any way possible. And when people are desperate, there's other people out there that try to prey on the desperate. And we've got to be careful. And that's not calling all doctors shills, because they're not. There's good doctors out there. There's good surgeons. There's good specialists. I'm not anti-medical. I never have been. We will need medical professionals. People will always have accidents, car crashes and disease. And medical science does lots of good things. Only when it's for the right reasons. But if you're doing it for a business profit, you're not doing it for the right reasons. And I think that ties into the government ties with the pharmaceutical companies. There should never be a correlation. And when you look at these pharmaceutical companies, they're the most fine companies on the planet. AstraZeneca have been convicted of 32 crimes in the last 20 years. Fines 1.5 billion. The crimes: government bribery, falsifying figures, incomplete data, incorrect data, false data. The list goes on and on and on. These people don't have a problem paying a £500 million fine because they made 10 billion in the last 3 months. So that is not a deterrent. The indemnities is another thing. These indemnities should all be stripped out, and the pharmaceutical companies should be held responsible. Not the taxpayer in the UK, because a lot of now it's governments that are paying, which effectively is us. So I'm paying myself because I paid myself to get my leg taken off. Insanity. You get to make all the money. Over 200 billion in the last 3 years you've made in profit. AstraZeneca, Oxford AstraZeneca, Covishield, Vaxserva. That's another thing. I want to know what is your name, and why do you keep changing the name but not the product? And why did you change the name quietly on the 21st of March 2021, just before the statement came out that all these clotting issues were starting to go global? So AstraZeneca.
I saw in the news recently that AstraZeneca have just admitted that their product can cause microclots or clotting issues.
Yes,
that's good.
Yeah, that is a huge moment for us, because in February they said it wasn't possible. Genetically couldn't be possible. That was their defence, and now they've acknowledged it. And it's great because that acknowledgement allowed the mainstream media to be forced to tell the truth. So Sky News told it, and it's now broke across the world, because on Tuesday, I ended up in Indian TV live. I didn't know it was the main live station, and apparently it was to hundreds of millions of people, because
Wow,
they have got a
that's
massive
great.
interest in AstraZeneca or Covishield, because 1.7 billion doses of it was given out in India.
Sorry, was Covishield, you saying that's the name they rebranded as for their vaccines?
Oxford AstraZeneca changed its name on the 21st of March 2021 to Covishield in some countries, or Vaxzevria in other countries. It didn't change the ingredients.
That's very interesting.
Oh, there's so many things about this. There's these Indian batches. There's 3 batch numbers: 4120Z, 001, or 002, or 003. They're made by the Indian Serum Company in India, but used in the UK. Now, they make Covishield and or Vaxzevria, which is different from AstraZeneca, Oxford AstraZeneca, apparently. So why is there people in the UK got a product for India that's named one thing, named another, and claimed to be something else? This has been getting in my, as they call it, the Indian batches, because the reason it's so special to me is because I'm an Indian batch. I'm 003, which is up there with the most fatal batch in the world. And certainly in the UK. Funnily enough, 001, 002, and 003 appear in the top 4. So there's an expert, sorry?
In the top of vaccine injuries, is what you're saying?
Yeah, in the UK. So,
Alex, I feel like we could talk for hours. Sure,
we could. I've just realised.
Yeah. In conclusion, I just wanted to in closing, just ask, what would you say to someone who is battling either a chronic fatigue syndrome, a chronic illness of any kind, a vaccine injury, or a long COVID disease? What would you say to them to encourage them?
I'm going to say to you what my psychologist said to me the first time I ever spoke to him. He said, you're going to experience every emotion you can think of, and many at the moment that you can't. That's normal. It's okay. You're entitled to feel that way, because that's the way you feel. Don't beat yourself up. Find those people that you know that you can phone at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm struggling. And they'll either stay on the phone, or they'll get in their car and they'll come to you. Find out who those people are and keep them close to you. If you know who they are, you're already halfway there. You've probably never phoned these people, because I know I haven't. Not because I don't want to phone them. I know they'll answer the phone if I'm really, really struggling. It's the fact I know they're there that I can say to myself, it's not that bad. I don't need to drag him out of his bed at 3 in the morning. It spurs you on. But the fact you know they're there gives you that comfort and that credence. Anybody that visits the places that you visit, the dark places, the horrible, the thoughts, don't beat yourself up. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling. And it's okay sometimes that we have to visit these places, because your body and your mind and you have to process some of what's going on. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in a bad, bad place mentally, if nothing else. So you've got to deal with it. You've got to try and process it. But don't stay there. Recognise when you're staying there too long. Get yourself out of that. And it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. But everybody has got something inside them. Everybody. You don't know how strong you are, because all you've got. And I said that to myself on the 4th of April. 2021, when I had an idea of some of what I was facing. Everybody has got this inside them. The only difference between me and you is I found it a long, long time ago. I've always had it. But that doesn't make me I'm not anything special. There's nothing wonderful about me. I'm just an ordinary guy from an ordinary walk of life who's been put in an extraordinarily horrible place, along with many others, you know, but I shouldn't be here. But I am. So if I shouldn't be here, there's a reason why I'm still here. And the burn and desire and the hunger and the anger for justice is what's keeping me going. And it's never going to stop. Because if when I win this fight, and I'm going to win my fight, I've never lost a fight that I've set out to win in my life, in any way, shape or form, and I ain't f***ing this one up anytime soon. We will have our day. We go to the next fight, because there's so many scandals out there now. We all now know of people who have been injured by something else, and the government, or they've been shafted, or they've been conned, or the government shafted them. We know them. We know that it's wrong. It's time to change the systems. The systems work fine when they're used properly. It's the workers that's the problem, which is we're politicians. But politicians are too closely aligned to their own pockets. And the very desire to be a politician should bar you from being one for life. If you're a politician, you've got one role, one wage, one salary, one commitment, your constituents. Not secondary jobs, management, directors, exec-directors, and all the rest of it, taking your monies. That's not politics. That's thievery, robbery. They call us the thieves and the uneducated and the illiterate. We've got more morals, we've got more standards, we've got more ethics and principles than these people will ever have. Because the one thing we've got that they don't have, we care. Don't ever give up who you are. Set your standards of what you will make you happy in this life and stick to them, no matter what. Because that's what's going to make you happy. Despite everything, I can't control what's happened to me. I control how I deal with it. Yeah. And you're never alone. That's the wonderful thing about the modern days now. If you're ever in a dark place, you're never alone. Even if you think you're alone, you're not. I'll finalise on one thing, and it's a positive, and I do mean it. You are the only light in your darkness. You shine your light out your darkness, because only you can lead you out the darkness. You are your own light. Never forget that. No matter how dark the place is, you are the way out. Believe in you. Set your morals, set your standards, set your ethics, your principles, stick to them, and be you. And you don't know how strong you are. That's all you've got, honestly. I'm not alone, because I've met so many strong, determined people who have survived things that no human being survived. And do you know what's the amazing thing? They've all got one word, one thing about them: compassion. Be compassionate, people. That's all you need to be. Be nice. It's no hard.
Thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate your time this evening and for being open and honest. And I
thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad. I'm sure people around the world, and hopefully those who have suffered vaccine injury or dealing with long COVID and other chronic illnesses, will be able to find some encouragement from this chat. Yeah.
2 of the 16 people that are no longer with us, were what we call long haulers, and that was two people that was COVID. You know, I've never
vaccine,
made
yeah.
this. I've never made this exclusively about. Yeah, I talk about the vaccines mostly because it's impacted me in many ways, but I've never ruled the fact that other people are struggling. You know, and we've lost them. Nobody gets to get. Nobody should ever not be remembered for this. And if I have to be the voice for those that don't have a voice anymore, then I think that's quite an honourable thing to have. And I ain't going to stop.
Thanks for your time, Alex. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks guys for listening, and I hope you guys take something from the conversation tonight. And yeah, thank you again, Alex Mitchell. Be sure to follow along. They can connect with you on Twitter. Hey, Alex.
Yes, X as they call it now.
I keep saying Twitter.
I still call it Twitter. It'll always be Twitter. Twitter known X called Twitter. You know.
I'm gonna put your handle below in the description. Yeah.
Oh, you've got it anyway, haven't you?
Yep. I do. I'll put it below, but feel free to say it again. Yeah.
It's AKE2306. I'm quite easy to spot. I'm the guy with one leg on a classic scooter.
Cool. Thanks so much, Alex. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Chris. I've really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.